Everyone, welcome to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. We have several agencies who will be presenting today. First, we have Board of Public Works, and our budget analyst is Mr. Patrick Frank. Mr. Frank, thank you very much for presenting.
Okay, yes, the Board of Public Works. On the first page, you can see some of the spending data for the prior authorizations all through the CIP. Two interesting things about this. These are for the state-owned capital projects. What you notice on, first of all, is the prior auths were quite large last year. And part of it had to do with a large appropriation into the Facility Renewal Fund that went to the dedicated purpose account. Also, as you can see, there are three projects: the Education Building, the Annapolis Data Center, and the Treasury Building that have most of their spending outside of the CIP. So this is and they are projects that start their planning late in the CIP. I'm going to go on to page 3 now, show the recommended actions. There are two recommended actions here. The first is for the $6 million PAYGO appropriation for the ECI cogeneration facility. The recommendation is to concur with the allowance for these funds. Also, there is a change recommended to the State Finance and Procurement article. This has to do with the Construction Contingency Fund. The issue is that the requirement is that by December 31st of each year, there's a report that shows this year's spending. The problem was, as I found out this last year, is when I went back to look at 2021, the number was about $300,000 off, and I inquired about it, and that's because of the timing of it. They used the November closing data for their report, and then they fix it next year. And so what what the department's recommending here is if we just change the due date to the end of January instead of end of December, then they can use the January numbers, and next year and in future years, the closing balances will always match up. Okay, the next, and that's shown on pages 3 and 4. I do want to mention on middle of page 4, there is a deauthorization for the Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass statues that projects have completed. The big spending project this year on the capital facility side is for the State House exterior and ground renovation. What I want to point out is that the costs are a little bit more than expected, and that has to do with three main reasons. The first is the higher square foot cost than was anticipated. Second is higher construction manager cost than anticipated. And thirdly, if you increase the cost of the project, your contingencies increase also. So this really has to do some with inflation. Moving on page 6, there is some comments about the out-year authorizations. The first has to do with the renovation in Guilford Avenue that was delayed for 2 years. Also, the costs are up in that project. The concern raising here is DGS is going to be moving in that building, and they are in State Center now. Everybody's vacating State Center, and they'll be the last agency, so they'll have one agency that might be there for 2-3 years in State Center after all the others have moved out. That seems odd, and so we're asking the department to comment on that. The second has to do with the Annapolis projects, the Goldstein Building and the Annapolis Data Center. Both of them are late in the program, and they're going to be renovated at the same time. The concern we have is operationally this could be very difficult because there's not a lot of space for even one of those buildings for the employees to work in Annapolis. So I'm not sure how they're going to manage it with two renovations at the same time. So that's another area to examine. Page 7 is the statewide and regional programs, which you have here. On this first page is the spending from 23 to 28. What you'll notice is there was some very large appropriations, $110 million into the Facility Renewal Fund in 2023. Because of that, and $70 million of that went into the dedicated purpose account. None of that has been spent this year and is going to be spent from the estimates. And so in 2024, there is no appropriation into this fund since they still have some funds left. They are ramping up the program. The idea is about $35 to $40 million is increased year by year. If you go to page 8, there's in the on to page. Let's go to page 10, on the other comments section, there is one thing that they're doing with that project is they have a contract that they call a job order contracting procurement, and the idea is to get contract managers that can manage these facilities renewal projects in order to increase their capacity so that they can take on more projects, and that was approved in February of this year. Okay, I did one last final comment I do want to make about the facility renewal project. As you can see on page 9, that there is from year to year, there is a slight about $25 million reduction in the backlog. So they are reducing the backlog, but there's still over $200 million left in it. Final comment I want to make on page 8 is for the construction contingency fund. The law says that it could only be 1.25% of what this Capital Debt Affordability Committee recommended as the limit. That's about $7.5 million. Nobody thinks that that's enough. So as with last year, there's a section in the bill that waives that requirement. The amount recommended by the governor for this is $20 million, and that certainly is a reasonable amount. We concur with that. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks and take questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frank, for the analysis. Are there any questions for Mr. Frank on the analysis, the Vice Chair of the Capital Budget Subcommittee, Delegate Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question. I was just wondering, how many do we know, and this might be better for the agency, but do we know how many agencies as well as how many workers are at State Center currently?
Yeah, there's a long list of that. I know some of the agencies are there that are moving out, and the controller has people there, the DBM has, DGS is there, Health Department has a lot of employees. I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are from all of that, but there is in the operating analysis hearing, which is tomorrow, there's a discussion about the State Center move that shows what the leases are and how that is coming together. And so we handled that in the operating budget analysis.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll ask that to the agency as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Frank on the analysis. Seeing none, thank you very much. Now we'll call up the Secretary for the Department of General Services, Acting Secretary Atif Chaudhry. Thank you very much, Secretary Chaudhry, for being here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I am Atif Chaudhry, Secretary of the Department of General Services. With me here today is Deputy Secretary Nelson Reichert, as well as Acting Assistant Secretary of Design, Construction, and Energy, Courtney Lee. On behalf of all the hardworking, dedicated employees at the Department of General Services, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the department's capital budget. I also would like to thank Mr. Patrick Frank for his analysis of the department's capital budget and always been willing to work with us very closely. DGS has a key role of supporting the capital infrastructure needs of the various agencies that we serve statewide. Currently, DGS manages over 450 projects, active design and construction projects that support various state agencies with a combined total value of over $1 billion. With regard to the analysis, DGS concurs with the PAYGO recommended actions. We also concur with the GO bond recommended actions, including amending the Construction Contingency Fund annual reporting requirements, as well as approving the deauthorization of $266,000 for the statues. The department has been asked to be prepared to brief the committee on 3 topics. Being respectful of the committee's time, we're happy to do so here. At the discretion of the chair, but you do have our full answers to all of these 3 topics in front of before you now. With that, thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you very much, Secretary Chaudhry. Are there any questions for the Secretary in this panel? Vice Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to give the same question to Mr. Secretary and the team. I'm just wondering how many workers are there, and the only thing I'll add to that, too, is given the changes with the pandemic, a lot of workers are moving towards telework, work sharing. That's obviously a part of the strategy we're talking about and addressing the vacancy rates and whatnot. So just wondering with the long-term plans, was that incorporated into the planning and costs around State Center?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chairman. Appreciate the question. As part of your analysis here, our response, we have a table that illustrates the agencies located at State Center, the square footage that they will be occupying at their new location. So it does list out the numbers, the agencies, their names, square footages, the cost per square foot, and the dollar amount for their moves. We don't have the number of employees listed there. We're happy to get those for you. But I believe it's approximately somewhere around 3,000 for the entire State Center campus there. And we are, I did want to mention that we are taking into account, as part of our space planning, taking into account the telework or potential telework schedules of employees that will be relocating, and doing some really innovative things when it comes to shared workspaces or hoteling space and collaboration rooms, where cubicles or workspaces could be shared by teleworkers, which will reduce the amount of square footage the state will be paying for leasing, and therefore reducing costs, while still making sure that we are efficient and having enough room for all agencies to be fully operational.
So we see less workers there long-term with the divestment.
Well, yeah, sir, and I think it depends on the agency. Each agency has different discretion and different, even within agencies, there's different units that have varying levels of telework. I think the vast majority of folks are on a hybrid schedule, but there are certainly many individuals that are coming in 5 days a week.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Lewis, are there any other questions for Secretary Chaudhry and his panel? Seeing none, that ends the budget hearing for the Board of Public Works. The committee will now move on to Department of Natural Resources with our budget analyst, Andrew Gray. Thank you very much, Mr. Gray.
Chairman, I'll now present the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Fiscal 2024 Capital Budget Analysis. On page 1 there, you see 11 programs are funded in fiscal 2024. In terms of the PAYGO and GEO bond recommended actions, on page 3, DLS recommends concurring with everything in terms of the authorizations, amendments to prior authorizations, and proposed pre-authorizations as well. There are 3 updates on page 4. The Resiliency Through Restoration Initiative Program received funding again starting in fiscal 26. It was not scheduled to receive funding in the 22 CIP, so that's coming back again. Local Parks and Playgrounds Infrastructure Program funding sunsets. There's no funding in fiscal 24. It's $85 million in 22 and fiscal 23 for that purpose. And then finally, the Natural Resources Police helicopter costs increased by around $100,000 of fiscal 23 deficiency for that purpose in order to allow the state to buy a new Natural Resources Police helicopter. On page 6, Exhibit 1 reflects the big picture for the Department of Natural Resources capital program funding. You see around a $50 million decrease between fiscal 23 and fiscal 24. That largely reflects the local parks and playgrounds funding, the $85 million not being reflected in fiscal 24. The $25 million for the critical maintenance program that's in the dedicated purpose account also not carrying over into fiscal 24. And it's balanced somewhat by increased funding for the 2 new funds created by Chapter 39 of 2022, the Great Maryland Outdoors Act. We'll talk a little bit about that more later. The transfer tax revenues increased due to overattainment. That's reflected in Exhibit 2 on page 7. This overattainment money is the money that comes in fiscal 22 more than we expected, more than we budgeted. Therefore, we then push it out 2 years, then becomes available for fiscal 24, and pushes us up in terms of around $53.8 million increase between fiscal 24 and 23 for the transfer tax. Exhibit 3 on page 8 reflects the programs traditionally funded with the transfer tax revenue, largely reflecting here, once again, the increase in the transfer tax revenue. There's also general funds, the repayment for the Rural Legacy Program, $5.4 million, and $16.6 million for Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation. That's funding that was forward funded from Chapter 39 of 2022, the Great Maryland Outdoors Act. Exhibit 4 on page 9 reflects the Maryland Park Service, in particular, pay-as-you-go capital funding. What you're seeing here largely is that general fund increase for the 2 new special funds that were created by Chapter 39. The Park System Critical Maintenance Fund receives $70 million in fiscal 24, and there's $36.9 million, or $80 million over 2 years, really, for the Park System Capital Improvements and Acquisition Fund. That Park System Capital Improvements and Acquisition Fund also had received $43.1 million from the Program Open Space Land State Share funding in fiscal 23. It was a balance transfer as proposed by Chapter 39 of 2022. In terms of the programs, on page 10, Program Open Space Land Acquisition Local Program receives $175.2 million. And I'd just like to point out 2 things here. There's increased funding for the Baltimore City Direct Grant, increases from $6 million to $10 million due to Chapter 39. That reflects a substantial increase in investment in Baltimore City's parks, recreational opportunities, and you also see switching out of the funding or reflecting separately of the funding for the program Open Space Public Access Program. That's reflected on page 12. So previously budgeted within the program Open Space overall program, now separately budgeted in order to show the transparency purposes to show public access to our park systems and natural lands. That's reflected as $19.2 million in fiscal 24. Natural Resources Development Fund funding is around $32.5 million reflected on page 13. Just 1 point to be made, or 2 points to be made here. The dam assessments and rehabilitation funding estimate for the out years increases substantially. So we're going to see a lot more money going towards working on our dams, which is obviously very important from a safety purposes perspective, but then means that there's less money for recreational purposes potentially in the out years. You're also seeing, well, there's increased money for the state park water and sewer infrastructure improvement fund as well. This is the Maryland Department of Natural Resources funding that goes towards the water and wastewater infrastructure operated by the Maryland Environmental Service. Important work, but obviously takes away some of the opportunities for enhancements to new recreational opportunities. There is a pre-authorization of $6 million in general obligation bond funds in fiscal 25 for construction bids for 2 projects, the Elk Neck State Park project and also a project at Rosaryville State Park. Critical maintenance programs on page 15 is around $5.5 million. In total, there's $75 million in fiscal 24, hopefully knocking out our backlog, critical maintenance backlog, around $75 million. So it's an aggressive schedule. There's a lot of money coming in at one time, but hopefully that'll really put us forward in terms of getting our critical maintenance needs addressed. One comment here on page 16, GLS recommends approval of the modification of the fiscal 23 authorization for the critical maintenance program. This is breaking out the funding for the Druid Hill Park. That funding was reflected in the state funding, really should be reflected as direct money going to Baltimore City. It's reflected that way in the fiscal 24 capital bill. And you're also seeing a breaking out of $300,000 for the Simpkins Mill property acquisition. That funding was previously state funding allocated. In fiscal 24, it's now, or excuse me, the fiscal 24 capital budget breaks it out separately as local funding to be administered by the local government or by the local jurisdictions. Waterway improvement programs on page 18. There's around $16 million overall in the request. 1 point to be made here. The vessel excise tax revenues were increased substantially, around $37.3 million in fiscal 21 and $36.8 million in fiscal 22, relative to the kind of like $20 million range. Therefore, a significant amount of money came in during the COVID-19 pandemic, apparently a lot of boat buying. However, that money is not necessarily reflected in the operating or PAYGO budgets for the Department of Natural Resources as it potentially could be. Therefore, DLS recommends that DNR comment on how it is using that vessel excise tax revenue and the future estimates for the vessel excise tax revenue. Oyster Restoration Program on page 21 receives around $2 million. Point here to be made is that there's funding going forward for the Eastern Bay Restoration Project as mandated by Chapter 574 of 2022. So there's 5 oyster restoration projects we're working on. This is sort of layering on an additional kind of work in that policy area. Then in terms of the 2 new funds that are coming in, the Park System Critical Maintenance Fund on page 22. Once again, that's the $70 million with added to the regular critical maintenance program funding will help us knock out the backlog. On page 23 is the Park System Capital Improvement and Acquisition Fund, is around $37 million. One of the challenges here is that the money is not necessarily kind of allocated out for particular purposes yet at this time. One issue in this analysis on page 24, this reflects the large increase in funding and the tight deadlines for the spending of that funding, the challenges that they're going to be endured by the engineering and construction unit. So a couple of things to note here. Staffing flux, there's a lot more positions coming in, or a couple more positions coming in at least for the engineering and construction unit, which is excellent. But then that means there's, it takes time to hire, to train, and then to deploy effectively those people. There's also an expenditure deadline. Chapter 39 requires a very tight timeline, turnaround for that $70 million general fund appropriation for the Park System Critical Maintenance Fund. It has to be spent by July 1, 2026. Which would be incredibly challenging given the $5.8 million being encumbered per year by the program in recent years. Finally, there's no asset management system currently in place. Therefore, we can't really make sure that our assets are necessarily being kind of maintained the way we want them to be. So a lot of money going into critical maintenance work, but we can't be necessarily sure that we're capturing everything that needs to be done and making sure that going forward yet, at least, that we have all the processes in place to make sure that we're kind of safeguarding our investments. My understanding is the administration is working on that with a project, pilot project in Western Maryland for that purpose. DLS recommends a DNR comment, how it will address the staffing flux, the expenditure deadline, and the lack of an asset management system as it works to its PAYGO capital funding. On page 26, Appendix 1 is the Program Open Space Local Distribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray, for the presentation. Are there any questions on the analysis for Mr. Gray? Seeing none, we have joining us today the Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources, Secretary Josh Kurtz. Thank you very much, Mr. Kurtz, for being here. Please proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Chang, Vice Chair Lewis, members of the subcommittee. Thank you very much for having us today. For the record, my name is Josh Kurtz. I'm the Acting Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources, and I'm joined today by my Deputy Secretary, Alan Fisher. The capital budget for DNR, when you look at this, I think when we think about this, what we see is the opportunities that we have to work in all of our local communities across the state. These are funds that are incredibly important for us, not only for the outcomes that they have for the state and for our natural resources, but also for our ability to leverage additional funds like federal funds and local funds. Just this morning at BPW, we had a stateside appropriation that was matched at a 1-to-1 with some federal funding to be able to get a greater return on investment for the state in terms of acquisition. One thing that I wanted to highlight in here is the Restoration Through Resilience program. We're very much looking forward to that funding coming back. This is a critical program for us in helping our communities prepare for things like flooding, severe weather events all across the state. So we're enthusiastically happy to see that coming back in there. If it's all right with the chair, I'll move on to the DLS recommendations. Thank you. For the PAYGO recommendations, we concur with the recommendation of DLS on page 3. On page 3 as well for the GO bond recommendation, we also concur with that. On page 16, the program open space critical maintenance projects, we also concur with DLS's recommendations for the fiscal 2023 authorization for the POS funding for the purchase of Simpkins Mill Pond. Moving to the responses for the Waterway Improvement Fund. That fund is one that goes towards maintaining 220 of our dredges, or for dredging for 220 of our waterways, for maintaining our public marinas. These projects tend to be very expensive, so we have been building up a reserve so that we're able to do some of these larger projects that they're coming down the pike. Also very important for us as we look at being able to provide access to our waterways and for recreation and for our economy. Moving on to the next recommendation as it relates to the engineering and construction unit. This is one that we routinely have issue kind of maintaining at proper staffing levels. We really, I think, become kind of the farm team for the federal government, for local governments, for private industry. So we do have a challenge with keeping engineering staff in those roles, but we're coming up with several ideas to make sure that we're able to do that to help us adequately spend the $70 million. When we look at the $70 million, it is a very big number. We do have a very long list of critical maintenance needs in our parks that we're working through and continuing to develop every day with our Park Service staff. But there is potential that we're unable to meet that goal, in which case next year we'll be coming back in. We're doing a deep analysis over the next year, coming again potentially seeking and requesting an extension on that funding. When it comes to the asset management software, I just wanted to let you all know that as Mr. Gray stated, that we do have a pilot out in Western Maryland. We currently have a staff member who's trained on the use of this software. We're running that pilot through for our asset management, and then we're going to do kind of a train-the-trainer model to make sure that we can use that across all of our assets, because we agree with the recommendation there and the concern over the importance of maintaining these assets and spending these critical maintenance dollars as effectively as possible. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Secretary Kurtz, for your presentation. Are there any questions for Secretary Kurtz? Dr. Fisher? Doug Metzger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so kindly. On page 23, the $3.2 million for North Point State Park and the $3.1 for the land acquisition. I'm glad to see that this has been a project long in the works, so I'm really pleased to see that, and I welcome you to visit with us sometime.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Metzger. Are there any other questions for the Secretary? Seeing none, that ends the budget hearing. We have several witnesses who are going to now come up. If we could have the following come up, that would be great. And then just a reminder, 2 minutes for the testimonies. We have Tim Casey with Friends of Maryland State Parks, Sarah Nebel with the Scenic River Land Trust, Charlotte Davis with Rural Maryland Council, and Ann Jones with the Baltimore County Land Trust Alliance. Mr. Casey, you could go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Chairman Chang. To the committee, we have 2 points. We'd like to advocate, as Tim Casey, I'm with Friends of Maryland State Parks. We're an all-volunteer organization. We advocate full funding for the governor's 2024 budget, and that includes, of course, program open space appropriation, as well as the operating budget for the Park Service, critical maintenance, capital improvement acquisition, and natural resources development fund, keeping all that funding in place. This is an iteration of something Andrew Gray covered, and Secretary Kurtz, and that is the staffing issue with ENC. I would like to expand the issue a little bit to include the issue which you've heard in the prior committee hearing, which is DGS has also shortages that those 2 organizations work hand in hand to get these projects done. So we want to support the hiring in DGS as well. I would like to ask one respectfully request. There is a bill out there, HB 543, which has a provision in it specifically for the Department of Natural Resources seeking an award of procurement contract for capital projects or maintenance with value moving from $100,000 cap to $200,000 cap. And I would like to ask the House Capital Committee to please consider making that provision happen relative to law by the end of the session. And I will formally submit from us a request to Chairman Chang for that particular movement. This will enormously help the projects move along much more quickly. Thank you.
I'll go next. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Charlotte Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Rural Maryland Council. I also serve as co-chair as Partners for Open Space. That is a statewide coalition of stakeholders that look to support the formula and the funding related to program Open Space. We believe we support the governor's appropriation. We ask that you keep that funding. It's important for our rural economies. The state parks attract people into our rural communities. The local side definitely helps support our rural towns and municipalities, and the Rural Legacy Program helps to prevent forest land and land fragmentation, keeping contiguous land and habitat together. So for that reasons, we ask for your continued support of Program Open Space and the DNR capital appropriation. Thank you.
Davis.
My name is Ann Jones. I work with the Baltimore County Land Trust Alliance, and I'm also here to speak in favor of the governor's budget and to ask for your positive consideration thereof. The Rural Legacy Program is what I want to speak to specifically and just give a couple of on-the-ground examples of what has happened in the last year. The Rural Legacy Program is able to buy farms and active farms. We've worked with farmers who are a next-generation farmer to get them going to buy the land. We have worked with farms that are directly in the water supply right next to the reservoir, the Lock Raven Reservoir, and the Pretty Boy Reservoir, which are sources of the drinking water for most of the Baltimore City area and the Baltimore metropolitan area, and it can provide protection for those valuable sources. And we just work with a lot of land that protects, as was said, contiguous blocks of forest, contiguous areas of streams and stream areas. So we appreciate your support and look forward to being able to continue to protect the best parts of Maryland. Thanks a lot.
Hi, my name is Sarah Nebel. I'm the Executive Director of Scenic Rivers Land Trust, and our mission is to protect the natural and scenic lands in Anne Arundel County. And we, like my other witnesses, are in full support of the full funding of Program Open Space. This funding has substantial local impact. For example, over the last decade, Anne Arundel County has used this funding source to purchase over 500 acres of adjoining properties and add them to the Bacon Ridge Natural Area in Crownsville. This is one of the largest forests in the county and now encompasses over 1,100 acres, and it has over 12 miles of trails that residents and visitors enjoy. As another example, my organization is partnering with the state side of Program Open Space to protect a 132-acre property that houses the last operating sawmill in the county and is on my organization's top 10 list of most important properties to conserve in the county. In addition, this program open space funding is used in urban areas as well, providing green spaces and parks in dense areas, providing places for communities to relax and recreate. We fully support this funding to protect our public spaces, farms, and forests that all benefit from, and we ask for your support. Thank you.
Questions from members of the committee for this panel? Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. That concludes the budget hearing for Department of Natural Resources. The committee will now move on to the University of Maryland Medical System, presented by our analyst, Ms. Ann Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As you said, I'm presenting the University of Maryland Medical System capital budget. The fiscal 24 capital budget provides $36.5 million in general obligation bonds. First, to discuss a quick update on a project previously funded in prior capital budgets. The Comprehensive Cancer Treatment and Organ Transplant Center project received first $25 million in the fiscal 23 budget as introduced, and then $75 million added through a supplemental budget for a total state contribution of $125 million, provided 3 years earlier than planned in the CIP. There was previous intent language from the General Assembly that the state commitment to this project total $175 million, although that language wasn't provided or included in the fiscal 23 budget bill. And the 2023 CIP does not provide additional state funds for this project, so we just wanted to provide a quick update on that. On page 3, this begins the discussion of the first project, the Capital Region Medical Center Oncology Center. This project constructs and equips a comprehensive cancer center located in Prince George's County. The fiscal 23 budget as introduced didn't have funds for this project, but then through budget deliberations, just over $40 million was added to the budget to initiate the project. And a pre-authorization of $27 million was also added for fiscal 24, and the fiscal 24 capital budget meets this pre-authorization level of $27 million. On page 4, the second project funded this year is the R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center renovation. The only thing I'll highlight here is that due to increased construction costs and higher than anticipated bids, has changed the scope of this project and taken some of the components off of this phase. And so ELMS is asked to discuss why the scope for this project has been limited slightly, provide cost estimates for any deferred project components, and explain how deferring those project components impacts the operations of the Shock Trauma Center. There's one exhibit on page 5, and this is just to show that the fiscal 24 budget provides $9.5 million in general obligation bonds, and that is completing the $20 million planned state contribution, and it accelerates $3.5 million that was planned in fiscal 25 by 1 year. But other than that, DLS recommends that the GEO bond authorizations be approved for both projects, and I conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. Any questions from the committee for Ms. Wagner? This afternoon, we have joining us from the University of Maryland Medical System, Dr. Bert O'Malley, President and CEO. We also have Ms. Kristen Jones-Bright, Senior Vice President, Chief External Affairs Officer, and also Nathaniel Richardson, President and CEO of University of Maryland Capital. If they could all come up. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here, and please pursue your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and members of the Capital Budget Subcommittee. For the record, my name is Kristen Jones-Bryce. I am the Chief External Affairs Officer at the University of Maryland Medical System. With me today are two of our hospital leaders in the medical system, Mr. Nat Richardson, who is President and CEO at the University of Maryland Capital Region Health in Prince George's County, and Dr. Bert O'Malley, who is President and CEO of the University of Maryland Medical Center in downtown Baltimore. They will be presenting the substance of our testimony on the two projects in front of you today. I would just like to take a quick minute, Mr. Chairman, to do some thank yous to your team. I want to thank especially the governor for inclusion of our two projects in the capital budget this year. And I want to thank this subcommittee, the Appropriations Committee, and the legislature as a whole for your ongoing support of our work and our partnership to improve access to health care throughout the state of Maryland. I also want to specifically thank Ann Wagner with the Department of Legislative Services, as always, for her professionalism and assistance. And I want to thank Paul Rader, who I think is behind me, and the team at DBM, who have been tremendous partners throughout the budget process. Again, I'm going to let Dr. O'Malley and Mr. Richardson speak to the projects, but I do want to make sure that we respond to Ms. Wagner's question. She had one question and one concern in her analysis. So for Cap region, the Cancer Center, there was a concern about the overall price of the project, the state's share, and the potential that the project would come in under budget. Well, we always sit and hope that some project someday is going to come in under budget. That seems to never, ever happen. What I will say is the team at Cap region stays in very close touch with the contractor on this project. They follow it regularly, and so they sort of know where it's coming in. Right now, it is anticipated to come in just over budget, but it is on time and is going to be, I think it is potentially going to be ready in spring of
2024, yes, spring of 24.
So the other question that Ms. Wagner asked was in relation to the funding for shock trauma phase 3. This is the remainder of the state's obligation for that ongoing phase 3 project at shock trauma. And the question was to discuss the project components that were deferred. So there is a hyperbaric medicine renovation component to this project and a renovation of the orthopedic unit on the 4th floor of shock trauma because of financial considerations and the need to proceed with other parts of the project as a first priority. We have had to defer those projects. We included a statement in the analysis. It is not without any impact to shock trauma or our patients, but we will get to those and plan to start construction of both of those pieces as part of phase 4 in 2026. So I know that you were up for a long day, Mr. Chairman, and you've already all had a long day, but that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to either take questions or pass it along to Mr. Richardson or Dr. O'Malley.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the University of Maryland Medical System? Delegate Grice.
I know that you were here to talk about these two projects, but there is quite a bit of concern on the Eastern Shore with delivery of health care in the rural areas. And I was wondering if you could just touch base on where we are with that. I remember going all the way back 15 years about how we slowed down the regional hospital in Easton, mainly because we wanted to add some specialized care in Caroline County. And we also wanted to add urgent care along with some primary care as well. And Shore Regional, which is part of OMS, did it an awful lot. We're very thankful for what they've done there. They also had to downsize in Dorchester County, and this took a number of years. But in order to be able to finish what we started a long time ago, we still have to build that hospital. And where right now it doesn't look like we have anything funded for that. Is there any concern from OMS in those regards as far as being able to move forward with that hospital, the regional hospital?
So, you know, you understand rural health care better than most people, and you understand what's happening around the country. I know over the past 10 years, we've seen 136 hospitals, rural hospitals, close across the United States. And I think earlier this week, the New York Times ran an article talking about the number of rural hospitals that are now shutting down OB programs. So I think the statistic is over half of the rural counties do not have obstetrics programs. And I think the Mid-Shore is a case study, though, in how to do rural health care right. As Delegate Grice points out, this has been over a decade of work to really right-size and regionalize care on the shore so that this is not all about inpatient care. So we've right-sized hospitals and instead focused resources in communities on the outpatient needs for the most part of those communities. We have, for instance, in Chestertown, right, Kent County is 20,000 people. The Mid-Shore, all 5 counties, there are 173,000 people in all 4 counties. You think about Prince George's County, that's right close to 1 million people in a single county. So it's tough to provide health care across that span of territory. And as Delegate Grice says, this regional medical center that we have asked for state funding, we are talking to the governor's office now, would be the hub of all the work we've done on the Eastern Shore to create an integrated care delivery system. And so I just want to thank you for your support over many years getting that done.
Well, I'm going to thank you guys because it was a very deliberate attempt for a lot of the counties on the Mid-Shore to slow that process down for the regional hospital so that way we could take the time to do it right by providing a lot of the services that we have now in a lot of these places that we never had. And now we have a lot of support from the entire region for this new hospital, and we're ready to move forward with it. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Delegate Grice, for the question about the location over in Eastern Shore. We have a question from the Vice Chair, Jazz Lewis.
First, I just want to say thank you to the work that your staff is doing, particularly in the Capital Region in gorgeous Prince George's County. I know from the days that you guys opened your facility, you've been working at 90% capacity nonstop, so for over a year now, and I know that's been really difficult in retaining nurses and your staff. First, I just want to thank you guys for being dedicated. I did want to ask, kind of as a part of this, because the data, as anyone has read it, shows how we're kind of, particularly in the prostate cancer, leading the state. So it's clearly needed. I guess I was just wondering, capacity. Obviously, we want this wing built in, but given that you all have been working at 90% capacity for the current space, could you just speak a little bit to that and what's being done there?
Sure, and when you think about capacity in itself, you have beds and then you have efficiency. What we've worked on mostly is efficiency because we have 221 authorized beds, 205 actual beds within the facility. So for instance, for every half day that we can reduce length of stay in the hospital, that's about 15 beds you gain. We were able to reduce our length of stay from about a little over 6 days down to close to 5.5 days, and that gave us an additional 15-bed opportunity. We also are looking at throughput throughout the organization to ensure that we get our throughput right before we actually get into any type of construction. You are absolutely correct. We've been running about 90+% on the med-surg beds, but when we get into some of our specialty beds, that's where we have the opportunity to, again, bring length of stay down, get additional beds, and then at some point, there will be a discussion around when do we grow from the infrastructure, but I think right now we have to continue to work on our efficiency and throughput.
As a follow-up, Mr. Chair, so I've been having conversations with the dental school up in Baltimore about the phenomenal work they're doing, providing a lot of particularly free care to the citizens of the greater Baltimore region. I heard something like 500,000 hours annually between the faculty and all the students that are coming through. There have been conversations in Prince George's about possibly seeing if the medical building that's across the street from you guys, if maybe we can bring kind of like a smaller unit over there to provide similar services. I'm sure those on the panel remember the story of Diamante Driver, the young man who didn't get the dental services that he needed and passed away, and subsequently Senator Cardin introduced legislation that I believe got wrapped into the Affordable Care Act. But I just kind of want to flag that we're going to be working long-term for money to help bring that there, and hopefully they can work in partnership with you.
Sure, and I've had some initial conversations with the chairs of the dental school at the School of Medicine, and the buildings that they're building across the street certainly will be room, and we'll continue those conversations and be happy to be a part of the plan and discussions for those services.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Lewis, for that question regarding Prince George's County. Just want to say this, that during today's presentation, one of the highlights of the projects were the University of Maryland, our Adams County Shock Trauma Center, and states all across the country and also healthcare systems all across the world look at the world-renowned system that we have, the emergency medicine system, and It's because of the investments we make as a state, and just wanted to see if you could remind the committee and also just highlight the wonderful work that you all do about how many patients are admitted to the Shock Trauma Center yearly.
Between 6,000 and 7,000.
And of the 6,000 to 7,000 patients who are the most critically ill and injured who come to shock trauma either by medevac or by ambulance or by other types of emergency modes, what is the success rate of them going back home to their families?
The success rate is 97%, best in class in the nation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here today. We very much appreciate you. And have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, that ends the budget hearing for the University of Maryland Medical System. The committee will now move on to public school construction, presented by Ms. Laura Hyde.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm Laura Hyde. This is the Interagency Commission on School Construction presentation for capital. Starting on page 1 with the capital budget summary. In fiscal 24, the capital improvement program for school construction totals $1.1 billion for 6 programs, including projected revenue bonds for Build to Learn. This allowance is $365 million less than the fiscal 2023 allowance, primarily due to the decrease in projected funding for Build to Learn. Turning to page 5, this is Exhibit 1. On this page, it shows the chart for the fiscal 2024 request by fund source. Revenue bonds for Build to Learn are approximately 40% of this amount. PAYGO special funds from the Fiscal Responsibility Fund allocated to public school construction program are 25%, and PAYGO general funds and GO bonds are allocated to multiple programs are 17% respectively. Exhibit 2 on page 6. This shows new construction funding by source in fiscal 2024 compared to previous years. The 21st Century School Facilities Program included a provision expressing the intent of the General Assembly that public school construction funding, excluding Build to Learn funds, meet or exceed $400 million annually, with Chapter 32 of 2022 increasing that amount to $450 million. In fiscal 2024, new funding totals $644 million, which exceeds this intent. Exhibit 3 on page 7 shows that the governor's proposed CIP as introduced in fiscal 2024 exceeds the legislative intent of $450 million. However, in fiscal 2025 through 2028, the CIP as introduced falls short of this goal. The next section I'm going to discuss is on specific school construction programs as programmed in the CIP. Exhibit 4 on page 8 shows the 75% and 100% recommendations for the public school construction program. For fiscal 2024, requests totaled through $833 million, with 152 projects currently receiving funding of $485 million as programmed in the CIP. And this covers about 58% of requests. Some LEAs had 100% allocation that exceeded the requested amount, and so DLS recommends that IEC comment on this issue. Exhibit 5 on page 10 shows the proposed budget for the EGRC supplemental grant program. This receives a mandated amount of $40 million in fiscal 2024. Based on the requirements for this program, 10 LEAs qualify this year, which is up from 7 in fiscal 2023. The governor's CIP shows a fund balance of this program of over $100 million, and so DLS recommended that IEC comment on that balance. Exhibit 6 on page 12 shows allocations in fiscal 2021 through 2023 for the Healthy School Facilities Fund. In fiscal 2024, the program receives an allowance of $90 million in GO bonds as mandated in Chapter 32. In fiscal 2022 and 2023, this program received a total of $80 million in federal stimulus funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. And because these funds must be spent by September 2024, DLS recommended that IAC comment on the status of expenditures for this program. The next program I'd like to discuss is the Build to Learn program and funding, and that starts on page 17 with Exhibit 9. This is Build to Learn bond issuances. Chapter 20 authorizes the issuance of up to $2.2 billion in revenue bonds for Build to Learn program. This chart shows that in calendar 2021 and 2022, bond issuances for the program totaled $699 million, with an average annual debt service of $36 million, which is covered with funds from the Education Trust Fund. Turning to page 18, which is Exhibit 10, This graph shows as interest rates increase, the amount available for Built to Learn programs decreases. As of December 2022, the amount projected for the program is approximately $1.7 billion, with the caution that this amount is subject to change depending on the bond market conditions. Exhibit 11 on page 19 shows the Built to Learn allowances and allocations by LEA using the currently projected allowance of $1.7 billion. Of this amount, $947 million has been approved by IEC for Built to Learn projects, with $753 million remaining for future project approvals. Pages 21 through 23 provide updates on this 21st Century Schools program, pass-through grants, and the revolving loan fund. And for the revolving loan fund, because no loans have been processed for this fund to date, DLS suggested that IEC comment on whether funding for that program is needed in fiscal 2024. Turning to Exhibit 14 on page 24, the Governor's CIP shows total unexpended balances for school construction program of $544 million. And because these balances are not broken out before fiscal 2018, DLS suggests that IET provide this information. Below this exhibit is contingency funds. DLS notes that IEC is responsible for submitting a quarterly report to the General Assembly on school construction program contingency balances by LEA. However, the last report was received in March 2022, so DLS suggests that IEC comment on this delay. Exhibit 15 on page 26 shows the current average age of school buildings statewide is 31 years old, with the average deviation in building age starting in fiscal 2005, which is the baseline for this measure. It ranges in age from minus 20 years in Kent County to plus 11 years in Talbot County. The remaining information in the analysis covers maintenance effectiveness and state cost shares. DLS recommends concurring with the Governor's allowance, and this concludes my presentation. I stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hyde, for the presentation. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Ms. Hyde on the analysis? This afternoon, we have joining us from the Interagency Commission on School Construction, Mr. Alex Donahue, Executive Director. Mr. Donahue, please come up and bring up your team with you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chang, Vice Chair Lewis, and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to provide responses to your questions. First, I'd like to just pass along Senator Casemeyer's regards and regrets. He was unable to make it today due to a personal appointment, but all's well. And I want to thank Laura Hyde for her analysis and support, as always. With me are several members of the IAC staff to provide information and questions. These are Tom Lockman, Chief Financial Officer, and Arabia Davis, Funding Programs Manager. There have been a lot of statutory changes to the IAC over the last 5 or so years, and the IAC is managing programs that total around $1 billion per year now versus less than $400 million just a handful of years ago. Staff have been working very hard to implement those changes. And before we respond to the analysis, I want to tell you a little bit about the big things that have been going on at the IAC and in school construction. We've been busy putting these funds to use through improved support of LEA planning and project management. In the last several years, we've been heavily focused on program implementation and expansion, which is ongoing. In the last year, our primary focus has really been on communication. Communication with our LEAs, county governments, and other stakeholders, including the associations that represent the boards of education, the counties, business officers, superintendents, and our elected officials. We believe that this enhanced communication, going both directions, from us to our stakeholders to inform them of changes, of which there have been many, and from them back to us to inform the changes that we make, are moving the IAC into an era of greater collaboration and cooperation, and ultimately make the agency a stronger force for positive change to the benefit of all of the public school students in Maryland. Arabia will provide an update on our programs, and Tom will respond to the analysis recommendations.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you. To meet the various school construction funding needs across the state, funding appropriations have increased for many of the programs administered by the IAC. In 2021, the General Assembly created the Built to Learn program. Shortly thereafter, on a rolling basis, the IAC began accepting applications. and approving capital allocations through this program. To date, the IEC has approved allocations for eligible projects totaling more than $900 million. Also, $90 million in Healthy Schools facility funds has been allocated to eligible projects that primarily support the environmental health of school facilities. Project types range from HVAC systems, lead remediation and drinking water, air quality, and roof replacements. This year, in response to concerns raised by LEAs, local education agencies, as it relates to the program schedule, the IEC will be considering adjustments to the application schedule at their March meeting. The proposed revised schedule for the Healthy Schools program cycle aligns with the legislative session and completion of the IEC approval process in July, allowing projects to get moving sooner than ever before. The outstanding level of financial support from the state has resulted in a number of large projects moving forward. The IEC has introduced more flexibility into our processes, increasing the amount of time for LEAs to complete allocated projects because there aren't enough developed projects to use all of the eligible funding, and extending the application deadlines as needed. The IEC continues to work hard with each local education agency to maximize the use of the available funds. Tom?
Good afternoon. Since joining the IEC last May, I've been coming up to speed on the history and growth of the IEC's large and complex capital programs. The state's continued and growing commitment to these programs is impressive, and they provide tremendous positive impact to Maryland students and stakeholders. I want to again thank Ms. Hyde for her analysis and her support in this process. The analysis asks several questions which we believe we've answered in our written testimony, but the central theme is that the IEC is working continuously to support LEAs in their execution of an immense and thankfully growing number of projects. We received several questions about the rate of expenditure of funds, so I wanted to touch on that briefly. The IEC's expenditures and encumbrances often do lag behind projects for two primary reasons. The first being that many LEAs choose to expend local funds on project activity first and then request reimbursement from the state at a later date. In addition, some LEAs may struggle to move projects forward because their historical staffing levels are insufficient to support the volume of projects that are now possible with the additional state funds now being made available through the programs that are administered by the IEC. Following a long period of vacancies in the IEC's finance group, our work over the next few months will focus on intensive auditing, reconciliation, and reporting, putting the IEC in an even stronger position to continue to support the LEAs while we execute a tremendous amount of work. And with that, I believe we'll stand for questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Lockman and Ms. Davis and Mr. Donahue for being here. Are there any questions? Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here, and I appreciate the really important work that you do. I just had two questions. One on the enrollment growth piece. Do you expect, or do you have in the queue an expectation of reimbursements that are going to be going out in terms of districts that are still kind of working through it that would drop that number down?
That would, I'm sorry, in terms of, you said enrollment growth?
Yeah, in the $100 million that's in the enrollment growth formula.
Oh, in the
yeah.
EGRC? Yeah, so we have, I believe an updated chart was provided, and we can get more specific information certainly to you on that.
And then I had a question regarding a bill that was near and dear to my heart. It took a couple of years to get through, the Safe Walk to School bill that requires you all to approve pedestrian safety plans. It's an issue that is a big deal in Montgomery County, but I know across the state, and certainly something that we keep seeing more and more fatalities and injuries of students. How's the ISC starting to roll that out, and what's that going to look like in the next year or so with the new round of approvals?
Thank you, Delegate, for the question. Yes, that is something in process right now because it is a collaborative effort with MSDE as it comes to the original phases of planning for school projects. There's been a mechanism in place with the 21st Century School Buildings Program that involves the local planners in the city of Baltimore around those specific issues. Nothing has ever existed of that type for other LEAs in the rest of the state. So we're having to look at how can we connect in all the needed inputs for those sorts of decisions to be made on projects. And it's actually more complex than, we had originally actually scoped. So it's going to take, at least a number of months more to put together something that will be efficient enough to not slow down projects, but yet also bring that information in at the right time.
Do you have a sense of how LEAs are starting to roll out the public participation piece, which was something that was really important in the bill to make sure that there's input from the communities on things like sidewalks or trail access or, simple things like timing on lights or crosswalks that could make it way easier for students to be able to get to school at, next to no cost?
I don't have good anecdotal answers for you on that, but I'd like to get back to you with some more details if that's okay. It's something that varies widely because of the huge variation in capacities at the LEAs. Smaller ones have fewer people available to work on the topics. The larger ones have much more established staffs and systems in place. So it really is kind of across the board.
Great. Well,
but happy to follow up. Thank you.
I was going to say look forward to that conversation. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Chair.
Delegate Solomon, are there any other questions from members of the committee for the Interagency Commission on School Construction? Thank you very much for being here, everyone. That concludes the budget hearing for the public school construction. Next, the committee will move on to the Maryland Environmental Services, and the analysis will be presented by Carrie Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Carrie Cook presenting the capital analysis for the Maryland Environmental Service. There is one program in the Grant and Loan Capital Improvement Program seen in the chart on page 1. In fiscal 2024, the State Water and Sewer Infrastructure Improvement Fund plans to receive $11.5 million in general obligation bonds and $13 million in non-budgeted funds. These non-budgeted funds are budgeted in DNR's budget and will be transferred to MES to support MES projects at DNR facilities. This fund was established to support capital improvements of state-owned water and wastewater treatment plants and water towers at state facilities. MES operates over 200 of these such facilities throughout the state. About 100 of those are state-owned, and the others MES operates via a contract with either a local government or a private entity. You can see on Exhibit 1, which starts on page 3, these are all the projects that are receiving funding through this program in fiscal 2024. You can also notice the prior authorized amount and the future requests that they anticipate past the 2024 budget season. Starting on page 6, just a couple other notes about this program. Historically, MES has struggled to encumber the funds in a reasonable time frame. There's over $4 million that has yet to be encumbered from fiscal 2020 and 2021, Many of these projects have had unforeseen delays in the design process or in obtaining permits, which delays the process in them signing that grant agreement with the agency. However, MES plans to award over $47 million prior to the conclusion of fiscal 2023, so that is going to bring that unencumbered number down quite substantially. And finally, this funding also includes an amount for unallocated funds. So there is $1 million in both GO bonds and unallocated funds for the statewide projects and the DNR projects. And these unallocated funds can be used to supplement various projects just based on cost changes due to inflation, other supply chain issues. In addition to these unallocated funds, there is also contingency percentages that are applied to capital projects generally. In other agencies, these contingency percentages may be 5 to 10%. Historically, for this program, they have been 15 to 20% just due to the complications associated with these types of projects. However, given the unprecedented rates of inflation and supply chain challenges, the contingency percentage for this program has increased to 30% in fiscal 2024. So DLS recommends the agency discuss the projected need for the $2 million in unallocated funds in addition to the increased contingency percentage that is planned for fiscal 2024. Moving on to the issues here, the first issue is regarding the Conowingo Dam dredging project. So the committee recalls that there was $6 million in fiscal 2023 that was authorized from the dedicated purpose account, and this was for a pilot project regarding dredging sediment that is trapped behind the Conowingo Dam in the Susquehanna River, which feeds into the Chesapeake Bay. The idea here with the dredging is to remove sediments such as nitrogen and phosphorus that are trapped behind the dam, to remove them before it washes over and gets into the bay. So there is no funding in fiscal 2024 for this project, but the reason that I bring it to the committee's attention is that there is $3.3 million that is currently sitting in MDE's budget. It has not yet been transferred to MES because DBM is reviewing the capital project plan. Once they have approved that plan, it will be transferred to MES. This plan has not been yet made available to DLS or the budget committees, so DLS recommends that submittal of that plan to the budget committees upon DBM approval. During last year's budget cycle, there was some concern from the budget committees regarding the lack of information on this project. So there was a JCR request, and the agency responded to that in September. So there were a few different items that were included in that response. One of them was a description of the innovative and beneficial reuse pilot project. So this is the pilot project that I mentioned earlier, basically testing it on a smaller scale before a larger scale dredging project, which would be a lot more expensive. The agency noted that the report could not be completed without using a demonstration project of dredged material from the Conowingo, but they noted that their subcontractor has developed a soil blend that meets various qualifications for bioretention that I've listed here in the analysis. The report also discussed dredging as a best management practice, which is a distinction that the Chesapeake Bay program uses in terms of reducing nutrients and promoting Chesapeake Bay health generally. So dredging is currently not considered a best management practice by the EPA or the Chesapeake Bay program, but they are working with MDE to form an expert panel to evaluate consideration as a BMP. And finally, the report examined the cost effectiveness of dredging, and basically the conclusion was that this is preliminary and they can't decisively determine whether dredging is going to be more or less cost effective than other measures. They did note, however, that current BMPs cannot physically remove sediments that are already there. Most BMPs are currently about reducing the amount of nutrients that get there in the first place. So they suggested that dredging could be used in conjunction with other methods that are already approved as BMPs. So just a quick update on where we currently are on this. The agency previously reported that the project report could not be finalized until that demonstration project. However, the report has been finalized and was posted on MDE's website in December. They note that it will be amended once they have that project. And they were hoping to do a project last year, but did not get a willing partner. They think that the spring 2023 construction season may be more favorable, and there has been some interest expressed from MDOT and a few other entities. And there are some details listed here in the analysis about some other takeaways from that report. The current status is that there is $3.3 million that remains in MDE's budget that has yet to be transferred to MES, as I mentioned earlier, and the remaining $2.7 million is in the dedicated purpose account. The second issue here is the Eastern Correctional Institute Cogeneration Conversion Project. So this was mentioned in DGS in the first analysis, and that is because there is $6.4 million in general funds that is as a proposed fiscal 2023 deficiency in the DGS budget. The reason this is in the DGS budget is because MES is non-budgeted. They cannot receive these funds directly, so it's planned to be transferred to MES. So what this project is doing is converting the fuel source at Eastern Correctional Institute, which is a detention center. They want to convert the fuel source from wood chips to natural gas. This project has been going on for several years, and you can see in the chart on page 10 This shows you the various fund sources for this project. So you can see in the beginning, it was mostly supported by the State Water and Sewer Fund, which I discussed earlier. But in fiscal 2022 and 23 budgets, there were deficiencies in DGS. And you can also see from the line here that the estimated total cost of the program has gone up quite a lot, just about quadrupled from fiscal 2021 to 2022. This is mostly due to the inaccuracy of the initial estimate. Designs and other plans were not completed, so the estimate was very, very lowballed. The agency now estimates that the total project will cost $21.9 million, and they are requesting the deficiency to make up the difference to get the project across the finish line. I also wanted to note here that given the grant funding received from MEA's Maryland Energy Infrastructure Program, they received a third grant for the third year in a row in fiscal 2023. So given that, DBM may seek to reevaluate the amount in the DGS deficiency. So obviously the cost of this project has gone far up due to misestimations, increased costs, supply chain challenges. But at this point, we just want to get the project across the finish line. Construction was scheduled to begin initially in December 2022, but was delayed until July 2023, when the agency estimates that the proposed deficiency funding will be available. They hope that the main facility will be burning natural gas in November 2023, and all of the facilities, including the ancillary buildings, will be burning natural gas by February 2024. So the agency should comment on the inaccuracy of the initial $4.2 million project cost estimate and how the agency is taking steps to ensure that future projects have cost estimates that are as precise as possible to avoid these significant deficiency appropriations. The recommended actions for MES is to concur with the FY23 deficiency budgeted in DGS for the ECI project and to approve GO bonds for the State Water and Sewer Infrastructure Improvement Fund. That concludes my formal presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cook. Are there any questions for Ms. Cook on the analysis? This afternoon, we have joining us from the Maryland Environmental Services, Dr. Charles Glass, Director. And also, I guess if you could state your name and.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the subcommittee. My name, for the record, is Ellen Ferketic. I am the Deputy Director at MES, and I am also here to express Dr. Glass's regrets. He had another commitment and was unable to make it today. We want to thank Carrie Cook for the great job she did. She did a very thorough analysis, and we are here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. And then, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Tosi. I'm the Director of Government Affairs. I'm just here to assist with answering any questions. And again, thanks to Carrie for her diligence and analysis.
Great, thank you very much. We have a question from Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you both. There was some reference to a deficiency appropriation, but then an MEA grant that followed that, so maybe you need a different deficiency appropriation, perhaps a lesser amount. Can you just explain what the current status is with that? It sounds like DBM might be revisiting.
Yes, sir. We are actually looking at the numbers now and trying to determine what part of the problem is we have over a 30-year-old facility. And like Ms. Cook said, when this project got started, we had a tight time frame. We didn't have time to do an analysis of what was there, and we don't know what's going to happen once we take the boiler offline. So we're looking realistically at all the money that we're getting, but as we sit here and wait, the costs continue to go up, due to inflation. This project started pre-COVID, and so, between the supply chain issues and inflation, it continues to go up, and we're hoping that come July, when we do get the funding and we can start the construction, we're going to have enough money that it's not going to go up even more between now and then. We expect it probably will some. It's hard to determine exactly how much, and we don't know what we're going to find when we take the boilers apart. And the other issue is, because it's at a prison, the institution relies on the power from the cogeneration plant. So once we take these boilers offline, we're going to have to rent temporary boilers. It's not something that we can stop partway through and come back for more funding if we need it.
So for good or for ill, this project is happening, and what you're saying is you have the deficiency appropriation you need, you have the MEA grant, and you may even need more beyond that, depending on what you find once you start the project.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is the last thing we want to do is have to come back and with another deficiency.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Corman, Vice Chair Lewis.
I kind of want to follow the same line of questioning, because I understand with the challenges with COVID and the supply chain and all that. I understand the labor shortages and whatnot. But I just, comparing it to a number of the other projects we're seeing that everyone else is bringing forward, like prices are doubling and not quadrupling. And even from your own testimony, it states here that, I think from where we were at, from the point that the 4.2 is listed, I think you guys said you can anticipate, I guess, up to 50% more at the time. So I'm just going to assume that you meant double. I guess was my assumed reading, which would have been like 8 million. Not necessarily. Am I getting that wrong? Am I misunderstanding what you put in your testimony there?
So the original, I was not at MES when the original estimate was developed, but there's a sort of a confluence of different problems that came up as this progressed. So the original estimate of 4.2 million doesn't take into account inflationary pressures, doesn't take into account delays with deficiencies with funding, et cetera. There's also probably some background work that could have been better done with this project that would have generated a more accurate estimate. So I think those problems have been resolved since. And
there was also a code-related issue, too, that we hadn't counted on that upped the cost even more.
One of the contractors also came back and increased their costs significantly, more than double, I believe.
Yeah.
So again, there were just a number of different issues that came up that probably exceed what you're seeing from other agencies with this particular case. But across the board, we haven't seen, with the exception of this project, seen this level of increase with our other projects. So this is unique to this particular project, is what I'm trying to say.
I appreciate that. I just, one thing we hear is that often these estimates will come in low and then there'll be a series of change orders. And I think what we are hoping that you guys can do with us is start to, I know you're doing your due diligence so that we can anticipate that, because, if folks are essentially going in intentionally and lowballing to get work and then are going to come back on the back end and essentially rob our taxpayers because they knew it was going to be higher. Now, over these past 4 years, obviously the pandemic happened. There's some justifiable reasons, but I'm just stating that from a lot of these that we're seeing, things are going up. And from having a background in procurement, I also know that sometimes, we know how the system goes.
Yep.
With, lowest bid technically acceptable, but then lo and behold, 6 months into a contract, there's these things that I didn't anticipate, but we always happen to not anticipate them, right? So just bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much, Vice Chair Lewis, for those comments. Are there any other questions from members of the committee for the Maryland Environmental Services? Thank you very much. That concludes the budget hearing for the Maryland Environmental Service. The committee will now move on to the Maryland Higher Education Commission, and the analysis will be presented by Mr. Samuel Queist.
Thank you, Chairman Chang, and good afternoon, members of the subcommittee. This is the DLS analysis for the Maryland Higher Education Commission. The capital budget includes 2 grant programs, the Community College Facilities Renewal Grant Program and the Community College Construction Grant Program. Starting out with the discussion of the Construction Grant Program, you can see in Exhibit 1 on page 4 of the report. This provides the annual funding levels, both previously and planned for the future. This program provides counties with funding for facility and infrastructure improvements at Maryland's 15 locally governed community colleges. And on Exhibit 1, you can see that $80 million is typically the planned future program amount annually. However, the actual funding amount in previous years has fluctuated depending on actual cash flow needs, project schedule variation, and other factors. This chart is also showing funds that the General Assembly has added to the program's budget in recent years, and you can see that despite this increase in funding, the program funding total has only met or exceeded the $80 million planned amount in 2 out of the previous 5 fiscal years, and the fiscal 2024 allowance amount is approximately $28.5 million less than the appropriation in the previous year. So due to that, on page 3, the analysis is asking MHEC to comment on any factors that have led to the program from not being funded at the full $80 million annual amount in recent years. On pages 5 through 10 is a list of the individual projects. The total budget for this program is $51.7 million, and it funds 11 projects at 8 community colleges. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each of them individually, but there is more detailed discussion in the analysis if there are any in particular you're interested in or have questions on. The top of page 5 also provides a list of the 3 projects that are pre-authorized for fiscal 2025 and 2026. Then on page 11 begins the discussion of the Community Colleges Facilities Renewal Grant Program. This program provides grants for improvements, repairs, and deferred maintenance projects at all 16 of the state's community colleges. Under the program guidelines, these projects cannot exceed $1 million in total project cost, and each college may not receive more than $500,000 in a given fiscal year and may not receive funding in consecutive fiscal years. The funding for this program is currently mandated in statute at 5% of the annual funding level of the larger construction grant program. And in 2024, as in 2023, there is also a $15 million supplemental funding amount above the mandated funding level. In FY 2024, the total funding amount for this program is $17.5 million. This includes both $2.5 million in general funds, reflecting the mandated funding formula amount, as well as $15 million in special funds from the state's fiscal responsibility fund. Based on the funding formula amount, the general fund portion is approximately $765,000 less than that portion of the fiscal 2023 appropriation. And if you consider the planned amount of $4 million, which is 5% of the $80 million planned amount for the construction program, this total is about $1.4 million less than that planned amount. Exhibit number 3 on page 12 is showing the allocations by college in FY 23 and 24, broken out by both the mandated formula portion of the program as well as the supplemental portion of the program. You can see that in FY 24, under the mandated portion, there are awards of $323,000 to 8 community colleges. This chart is also showing that based on the overall funding formula, this amount is about $96,000 lower for those 8 colleges compared to the 8 colleges receiving funding through that portion of the program last year, which was about $419,000 per college. So based on this, on page 13 of the analysis, DLS is pointing out that the committees could consider legislation to amend the mandate for the funding of this program to set the mandate at either $4 million or the minimum of $4 million or 5% to establish a mandated funding portion for this program, and that would also establish more consistency across fiscal years. Then finally, the DLS recommendations are to concur with the allowance for both the general obligation bond funding and the PAYGO general and special funds. And I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quist, for the analysis. Are there any questions for the analysis by Mr. Quist? Thank you very much. Today we have joining us from the Maryland Higher Education Commission, we have Jeffrey Newman, Assistant Secretary for Finance and Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. I am Jeff Newman, Assistant Secretary for Finance and Administration and current representative on behalf of MHEC. I'm joined by Dan Schuster, our capital budget analyst who administers both these grant programs. We would like to thank you very much for your support for these programs over the years. We'd like to thank Mr. Quist for his analysis. We've provided a response to the issue raised in the analysis, and we concur with both recommendations, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the Maryland Higher Education Commission? That concludes the budget hearing for, actually, we have, looks like we have
Thank you very much.
testimony by Jay Perman, University System, Maryland. And that's it. All right, thanks. That ends the budget hearing for the Maryland Higher Education Commission. The committee will now move on to the Department of Housing and Community Development, presented by Emily Haskell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Emily Haskell, and I'm presenting the capital budget analysis for the Department of Housing and Community Development. I'm going to start on page 5 of the analysis. DHCD's fiscal 2024 proposed capital budget totals $207.5 million across 13 programs. Exhibit 1 on page 5 shows the fiscal 2024 proposed funding by category as well as fund source. You'll see just over a third of the proposed funding is for DHCD's various community development programs, and just under a third is for the development of affordable rental housing and shelter. Next, on page 6, Exhibit 2 shows the fiscal 2024 proposed budget in the context of historical funding levels. So you'll see there's a large decrease from the fiscal 2023 funding level, but that was really an unprecedented high level of funding in fiscal 2023, both due to federal funds from the American Rescue Plan Act for broadband and the Homeowner Assistance Fund, but also due to one-time funding made available across nearly all of DHCD's programs in fiscal 2023. The fiscal 2024 proposed level is actually above the planned amount from last year's CIP by about 25%, and that is due to the continuation of funding for the Strategic Demolition Fund and the Homeownership Works program, both of which had previously been planned to have fiscal 23 as the final year of funding. The Strategic Demolition Fund, which includes Project CORE in Baltimore City, that program receives funding of $25 million in fiscal 24, and $20 million is also planned annually in the out years of the CIP. The Homeownership Works program was piloted in prior years using federal funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, and the fiscal 2024 proposed budget includes $10 million in PAYGO general funds for the program, and also programs $5 million annually in the out years. Next, I'll turn to page 7. I want to highlight that there are significant federal funds available to the department that are not recognized in the CIP. This includes significant funding from the American Rescue Plan Act that is available but not yet appropriated for the State Small Business Credit Initiative, the Homeowner Assistance Fund, and the Home Investment Partnerships Program. Those funds are expected to be expended over the next several years. And then also there's anticipated funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act for broadband that's anticipated. None of those funds are included in the fiscal 2024 proposed budget or in the out years of the CIP. So DLS recommends adopting narrative requesting that estimates of anticipated federal funds be included in the CIP. Next, I'll turn to rental housing programs. Exhibit 3 on page 8 shows funding for DHCD's rental housing programs in the capital budget. You'll see the fiscal 2024 proposed level of $57 million. Again, this is a decrease significantly from fiscal 2023 funding, which was also, as you'll see, at a historically high level. The funding in fiscal 2023 was elevated both due to the use of available budget surplus, as well as the fact that Chapter 337 of 2022 transferred $30 million in income tax revenues to the rental housing fund. Next, I'll turn to the first issue in the analysis, which relates to broadband. This is beginning on page 13. Exhibit 7 on page 14 shows the funding that's been appropriated for broadband initiatives to date. You'll see this chart includes nearly $400 million that has been allocated in federal funds from the American Rescue Plan Act for broadband. This chart does not show the $100 million that is anticipated from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. You'll also see that there's no funding included in fiscal 2024 for broadband initiatives, as I mentioned. Exhibit 8 on page 15 shows the broadband programs that are funded in the capital budget. The largest, Connect Maryland, provides funding for infrastructure expansion, and in the chart it appears that there's significant funding remaining. However, I will note that the remaining $95 million in awards are expected to be announced very soon. The applications for that program closed this past December. The Connecting Public Housing and Rural and Digital Connectivity Block Grants programs are both still in development, and DLS has asked the department to comment on the status and timeline for getting those programs going. Next, Exhibit 9 on page 17 shows the overall national funding available for broadband from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I'll focus on the first program in the chart that's the largest, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, known as BEAD. This program has a $100 million minimum for states. Those allocations will be based on maps that are currently under development, and the allocations are expected to be announced by this June. DHCD has received initial funding for planning grants for $5 million for the BEAD program. This funding will be used to develop a 5-year plan. These funds were received in December, but the funding has not yet been added to the budget. Finally, I'll turn to issue 2 in the analysis on page 18 related to the State Small Business Credit Initiative. The American Rescue Plan Act provided nearly $200 million for Maryland for the SSBCI program, which funds state programs that expand access to capital for small and underserved businesses. Exhibit 10 shows how DHCD has allocated the funds, both in DHCD as well as providing funds to Commerce and TEDCO programs. DHCD will retain about $103 million from the overall nearly $200 million allocation. The funds for the SSBCI program are coming to Maryland across 3 tranches, with expenditures expected from fiscal 2023 to approximately fiscal 2028. Exhibit 11 on page 19 shows DHCD's timeline for expending these funds across DHCD's 2 subprograms, providing both loans and equity investments. DLS recommends concurring with the GO bond authorization, and in addition to the narrative I mentioned earlier related to federal funds, which is shown on page 3 of the analysis. And that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haskell, for the presentation. Are there any questions for Ms. Haskell on the analysis? This afternoon we have joining us from the Department of Housing and Community Development, the Secretary, Jake Day. If you'd like to come up, and anyone else you'd like to bring up, please bring them up, and please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Chang and Vice Chair Lewis, and honorable members of the subcommittee. My name is Jake Day. I'm the acting secretary of the department, and with me is Owen McAvoy, the deputy secretary of the department to my left, and Rick Gordon, the director of the Office of Statewide Broadband to my right. I want to take a moment just to acknowledge that I've got other members of my really fantastic team behind me, and I want to thank Ms. Haskell for the diligent review of the budget proposal. It's my honor to be here today, not only to represent our governor, but as the steward of the state's very robust housing and community development resources and programs. I want to open by saying that I believe DHCD, and this is to take nothing away from my colleagues that run other state agencies, but I believe DHCD represents the best investment for a dollar of Maryland's taxpayer money. In the materials provided to you, you'll be able to find about 20 maps that detail where our FY22 projects are located across the state. We can also work with you to ensure that you have district-by-district maps of where our FY22 dollars went. Happy to provide those for you. And that includes everything from tax credit deals to energy efficiency programs to mortgage products, community revitalization dollars, and more. Last year alone, that meant $4.9 billion in economic impact, $1.1 billion in local, in wages and salaries generated. That's 22,000 FTEs. And it also represents the generation of 83 million in local and state taxes generated. From a capital budget standpoint, last year was a banner year. Thanks both to federal funds and the significant increase in rental housing dollars that the General Assembly trusted us with. It's my hope that the FY24 adopted budget will continue to reflect our aspirations to house every Marylander, to make lovable places, to correct unjust policy decisions of the past, and to connect every Marylander to the information economy. I want to point out that DHCD is not only a vocal advocate of the resources that we're entrusted to deploy, but we're historically very creative with whatever budget we are given, and I intend for that to continue. So I want to take just a moment to quickly respond to the DLS recommendations. Regarding the PAYGO recommendation and the GO bond recommendation, the department respectfully agrees with both recommendations. And with respect to the two recommendations, or the DLS issue identified with respect to the Connecting Public Housing and Rural and Digital Connectivity Block Grant programs, these are both programs where the spending plan developed by the department was submitted to U.S. Treasury in September of 2022. And so as we wait to receive a response from Treasury, that's really the only barrier to us implementing that work. And we expect that in spring 2023, so within the coming months, we will receive that response to our spending plan. The last thing I'll note before I pause or stop for your questions is that with respect to those broadband awards, I am expecting that the timeline for that is 2 to 4 weeks. So we should announce within March, and we should be able to announce the $95 million in grant awards for broadband. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will pause for the committee's questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Secretary Day. Are there any questions for the Secretary? Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Acting Secretary, it's good to see you. Congratulations on your new role.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on the Homeownership Works program. And I know it's just really been a pilot in 2 jurisdictions so far, but we've got one project that's about to come online in my district that is a mixed use. They use the affordable rental housing to finance about 25 owned townhomes. They've been partnering with Habitat for Humanity. And we've got a couple of other folks in the community that are looking at that model. We have one church in particular that's really interested in doing a similar project. Would something like that qualify in your mind or in the agency's mind for the Homeownership Works funds going forward?
Well, if I can, Delegate, if I can respond to that, one, by just kind of explaining what I think the future of that program can be, and then I'll ask Deputy Secretary Owen McAvoy to respond to that particular project. I think Homeownership Works represents really kind of the best type of creative solution to the challenge many neighborhoods are facing, and probably the one you're talking about as well, which is that one size isn't going to fit all. One type of program isn't going to solve all problems. It can't just be rental housing works, nor can it be our partnership program alone, nor can it be just a product oriented on sort of surgical reestablishment of housing on vacant lots. It's kind of got to be a layering of these solutions, and that's what the pilot program, the Homeownership Works pilot program does. And so with respect to that particular project, I'll ask Owen to respond, but I think you've got a solution there to the many faceted problems that many of our challenged neighborhoods have.
Delegate, the first question is, if I can get the details of that particular project, let's connect on that. We are in the midst of our program design. As you mentioned, this started out as a pilot program that was targeted to 2 specific areas, one in Baltimore and one in Cambridge. We're in the middle of programmatic design. We have not nailed down exactly how we envision this future $10 million being folded into what we've already done. But if you can get me the details, we can. We've got a great team. Our CDA director, Greg Hare, along with Carol Gilbert at Neighborhood Revitalization, is putting together a really robust plan about how we're going to use that money. And, if this department is anything, and the Secretary mentioned it, we are very good at being creative and we are very good at being flexible. So if you can give me those details, we'll connect on that, and then we can get back to your office.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
other questions for the Department of Housing and Community Development? Thank you very much for being here. We have several witnesses who would like to provide testimony today.
Thank you, Chair.
And we'll call them up. We have Claudia Wilson Randall with the Community Development Network of Maryland. Dana Johnson with Homes for America. Ms. Jondre Jennings with Druid Heights. Brian Alston with Park Heights Renaissance. Thank you very much for being here, and each witness has 2 minutes, please. And whoever would like to start can go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Claudia Wilson Randall. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Development Network of Maryland. We are a statewide network of housing and community development partners, housing counseling agencies, and community-based nonprofits across the state of Maryland. And I'm here today in support of the Department of Housing and Community Development, their budget and the work that they do. Our partners have been at the forefront of work during the pandemic with the Department of Housing and Community Development, and we want to speak strongly in support of the current allocations of the capital budget, but we also have a few amendments that we would like to offer. With that, I just would like to say that we'd like to see community legacy be at $8 million, where it was last year, and for shelter and transitional programs, we'd like to see it at $6 million. Rental housing programs, we really would like to see that at $150 million. We have a lot of programs in the pipeline at the Department of Housing and Community Development, and without additional capital, they can't get completed. So we'll just come to a screeching halt in terms of housing production and rental housing production. As you know, there's an urgent need for rental housing across the state of Maryland. This is not any problem for just one jurisdiction. It's a problem statewide. So we really need to see robust investment in rental housing programs. I also want to mention that, just with a little asterisk, that the Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Initiative, Bernie, as is affectionately known, we'd like to see an increase in operating to go along with the $12 million in capital spending. And I know this isn't operating budget hearings, but I just want to mention it because it got stripped out, I think, inadvertently in the past. So I just want to mention that. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak today.
Great. Thank you very much. Next.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chang and members of the subcommittee. My name is Dana Johnson, and I'm here today in support of the DHCD Rental Housing Program budget. I'm the president and CEO of Homes for America. We are a nonprofit housing organization headquartered here in Annapolis with a mission to build and preserve quality, affordable housing enhanced with services. We serve the Mid-Atlantic region, and we have developed over 80 rental communities and currently serve over 5,000 households, the majority of which are here in Maryland. We have been developing housing in Maryland for almost 3 decades, and the last 3 years have certainly been among the most challenging. Building and preserving quality rental homes that support seniors, essential workers, and persons with disabilities takes many partners. Here in Maryland, DHCD is an essential partner. The proposed FY24 budget has the lowest funding level for rental housing programs in the last 4 years. And as you will hear later from some of my colleagues from the Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition, the financial challenges today are incredibly acute. The department has shared that they expect to run out of capital funding this month, which means that new communities that could deliver hundreds of new apartments will not have the funding to start construction and get underway. This is despite the record funding of these programs last year. There are over 6,000 apartments that are planned and designed for communities across the state that will not be built without additional DHCD funding. This at a time when rents are spiking and inflation is making food, gas, and utilities more expensive for all of your constituents, but particularly painful for moderate and lower income constituents that we serve. I want to also share that 31 other states have invested federal fiscal recovery funds from the American Rescue Plan in the development of affordable rental housing. And as part of the Biden administration's Housing Supply Action Plan, the Treasury announced guidance last year to facilitate the use of these funds for rental housing. Many other states across the country have invested upwards of $100 million.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you very much.
And we encourage Maryland to do the same.
All right, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Next.
Good afternoon, Chair Chang and members of the subcommittee and my own delegate. My name is Joan Ray Jennings. I'm the Executive Director of Druid Heights Community Development Corporation, and we urge you to support Department of Housing and Community Development operating budget. Druid Heights, we're a 501c3 nonprofit in West Baltimore, and we're in an urban renewal area. Our mission is to cause, encourage, and promote community self-empowerment through the development of economic, educational, employment, and affordable housing opportunities. So essentially, we're working to improve and increase home ownership in Baltimore City, specifically in West Baltimore. DHCD funding from the state helps to assist these capital projects. And again, we're doing affordable housing projects in the community. And so we urge you to support Community Legacy and the Bernie funds, which are flexible, creative ways for capital funding. And this work is critical in Baltimore City, especially in the areas where we're working to increase affordable home ownership and revitalize these communities in West Baltimore. As my colleagues have mentioned, the funding has not been enough. Every year there's over 30 million applicants that apply for this funding. Again, we use this funding to revitalize not only in Druid Heights, but Baltimore City. It helps to create affordable homes for low to moderate income families. Our Bakersview home, which are 21 houses that we're currently working on, will also, local hire is a really, really important thing in the community. And so we urge you to support the community development investment in Baltimore City and Maryland. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here. Next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Brian Alston, State Circle Strategies, here on behalf of Park Heights Renaissance, PHR. I'd like to give a shout out to our delegate, Delegate Bridges. Thank you for your hard work and support and advocacy. PHR, incorporated in 2007, is located in Baltimore City. We work with all community stakeholders to improve the community of Park Heights. PHR is also charged with implementing the Baltimore City Park Heights Master Plan. Community Legacy and Bernie funding have allowed us to transform a once blighted and primary vacant neighborhood block into a new neighborhood that is driving investment and shaping how Park Heights should be redeveloped. For example, I'll be very brief. In 2019, the average value of a property on this particular block averaged about $20,000. As of today, the average home after rehab on that same block is approximately $330,000. These programs work. We thank you for your past support. We look forward to enjoying your future support, and but we can do so much more if we had so much more resources. Again, thank you for your consideration, and we ask for your continued support of the community development investment in this upcoming fiscal year's budget.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee for this panel? Thank you very much for being here. Have a great evening. Next we have Mary Ann Dillon with the Housing Initiative Partnership Incorporated. Miranda Williams with the Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition. Thank you, ladies, for being here, and please proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chang and members of the subcommittee. My name is Miranda Darden Willems, and I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition, a group of 185 member organizations that use DHCD financing to build, own, and manage affordable rental housing communities across Maryland. Last week, we held our annual Housing Day, so many of you recently heard from us about the pending rental projects in your districts and the challenges developers face trying to build new affordable housing communities. I'm here today with some of our developer members in support of the governor's proposed budget for DHCD's rental housing programs. They will tell you how they have used DHCD funds to build affordable housing across the state. But I wanted to talk about the urgent need in Maryland for more affordable housing units. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, Maryland has a shortage of 125,000 affordable housing units just for the extremely low-income renters. And our state is the 9th least affordable state to live in the country. Safe and stable housing leads to better education outcomes and lower health care costs. There are 90 affordable rental housing projects under review at DHCD right now, which would create or preserve nearly 7,600 homes. But without additional funding, many of these projects can't move forward. I know it's a big ask, but the program needs another $170 million to provide gap financing for the projects that are already in the development pipeline. This budget is $100 million less than the state funding you provided last year. We know there are many important priorities that all need more funding, but this program is a solid investment of state dollars and will allow us to continue our important work of building more affordable rental housing. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chang and Vice Chair Lewis and members of the subcommittee. I'm Mary Ann Dillon. I'm Executive Director of Housing Initiative Partnership, known as HIP, and we're a nonprofit housing developer and counseling agency based in Prince George's County. And I'm just going to cut to the chase and explain to you why all these projects are having so many cost overruns and so many challenges closing. All affordable housing projects require a patchwork of funding sources to get built. They have a permanent mortgage. They have low-income housing tax credit investment. They have lots of soft debt like rental housing works or the rental housing programs, and then county soft money as well and grant money. The permanent mortgages are what the real variable is. These are sized based on what's called debt service coverage. The surplus cash you have from operations is sized by the underwriters, where maybe 80% of that cash could be used to support a mortgage. If you have less cash flow, the mortgage shrinks in kind. So when operating costs increase, as they are increasing due to inflation, and your rents are staying stable and lower because we're building affordable housing here, there's less cash flow, and therefore there is a smaller permanent mortgage. As an example, if there's a spread in interest rates from 4% to 6%, which is what we've seen in the last year, that would reduce your permanent mortgage by like over 20%. So a $10 million mortgage that you had is now worth only $8 million. So a project that you brought in for underwriting last year to DHCD all of a sudden has a $2 million budget bust, and you have to find other sources to replace that. We closed on a deal back in June where we had to put all of our own investment back in and take nothing out of the project in order to meet our mission to get our housing done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And
Jacqueline Alexander, I did register to testify, so I was wondering if I can still testify. I did sign up for both oral and written testimony.
we don't have you on the list here.
Can I still submit my testimony?
You
I also
can-
have a
you
copy
can
of it that I can give
absolutely
and make sure
email
it's
us
part of the
your-
record.
Yep, you can absolutely email us your testimony. We very
Okay.
much appreciate you being here.
I
and
appreciate
provide that written testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for this panel here from members of the committee? Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. That concludes
Thank
the
you very
budget
much.
hearing for the Department of Housing and Community Development, and that concludes today's capital budget hearing. Have a great evening.